is aware of this, that back in the city, right now, physicists can support a scenario wherein all of creation arose from one particle, one atom, that is a reasonably accepted, sophisticated, current, among several, scenario of universal creation. Now, what I was calling night before last my one sentence or my one word theory covers the same ground except all of the areas that are non-material. Now, I bring this out in case any of you still have this egregious tendency to take my metaphors as metaphors. That's a terrible habit. Or to believe that something was strictly a metaphor. It is quite possible, it is, for those of you who still have a good handshaking acquaintance with city logic and reason, it is as reasonable, it is as sophisticated and as current. This is not the only reason I bring it out, but it is as much, that is my one word theory, my one sentence theory, is as reasonable and as well founded as any notion that quite materially, quite scientifically, there is valid 3D information to believe that everything could have sprang from one particle. Getting into biology even, there are some notions now at the cellular level that all of humans, forget all the possible evolution of going from lower life to more complex, but that the human race itself, Homo sapien, sprang from one cell out of whatever the morass and gunk was that such biological viable cells arose. I assume all of you have read such as those two, or one of those two. But what is not taken into consideration is what I just said, even though it may have thrown some of you off me calling it a one-word theory. I could have called it, as I mentioned just in passing, night before last, a one thought. But one word, I was trying to get your attention down to the facts and to these stories that are embedded into man's wiring system through myths and religious tales, that perchance the great creator, the great god or gods and a handful of the committee had one word that started it all. But after that it becomes non-specific, apparently non-pragmatic. But I am telling you that there is as much validity non-materially to my one-word theory, as I was calling it for you, as there is that all of physical creation sprang from one particle. It arose from one particle and blossomed. Anyone who did not see last week's tape, I am using, me calling it one-word theory, I am using that in my own particular way. It's not a theory. I'm suggesting something else and trying to get you to participate. Now let me complex the map up some and point this out, that behind every thought is another thought, and behind every word is another word. And this does not simply have to do with the idea of there being an unconscious mind in man, although it arose from the reality of this. But I am still now talking about trying to hint around and sketch around what I have been pointing towards for the last several weeks, of what seems to be this partnership arrangement, that there seems to be a talking at any given moment. There seems to be a talking, a thinking, something in you, right up here in the nervous system, in the brain area, and then there seems to be that, whether it normally be taken into account verbally and noted as such, but there seems to be that which is listening to you talk, which is noting what you think. It's not a theory. It's not a guess. It's there. You would not be, as it's called in the city, conscious if there was not inside of your own nervous system the ability for it to listen to itself, for it to even look at itself, that you can picture things. Right up here, you can sit there and you can picture right now, in a way that only the human brain can, you can picture your bedroom back home right now. You can picture it. But there has to be something to see what you're doing. Where I can say, all right, everyone, you probably know your Social Security number. Try not to move your lips, but say it to yourself. The only way you can say it to yourself and know it is there's a part of your nervous system that can listen to you think. Behind every thought that you apparently have, and behind is quite relative, using 3D words, but behind, below, everything you think is another thought. Behind every word you say is another word, and it does not have to do with, I am not referring to the idea that there is an unconsciousness or an unconscious thinking mechanism in man that no matter what you're thinking, if you turn around and say, boy, that's a good-looking woman, I'm not referring to this good old city. These flawed ideas, these crippled ideas that, all right, whatever you're thinking about, boy, that woman sure does look good. The reason you're thinking that, because she's got real big hips, and your mother had real big hips, and you liked your mother. As neurotic as that may be, but that, obviously there's something behind you saying, I like women with big legs and red hair. I am not talking about that. For the time being, what I'm talking about to say behind every thought's another thought, as I begin to try to sketch it out, assuming that I'm going to catch some of you up in it and continue it for a while tonight, start off on this basis, that the thought behind every thought may not have any relationship whatsoever, apparently, to the thought you're having. I'm not inferring that it does. I'm not inferring when I say that it does. I'm not referring to the so-called unconscious or subconsciousness in man, that there is something below the conscious level that is feeding like some sort of gaseous, noxious or some kind of gas at least, in a swamp that's below the surface bubbling up and causing the fumes that may arise at visible or conscious level. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that there's any connection that you would ever see. I'm saying this, though. Every thought you have, there's another thought behind it. So for the time being, assume that it may have no connection, or assume it has no connection. Just none. But whatever you're thinking, I assure you of this, right behind it is another think. And behind it is real relative and real limited to 3D terminology. Because now I am left with having to say, all right, it precedes it. It's behind it, pushing it forward. All right, it's in front of it, dragging it out. Because I can't go much further with most of you people's ordinary thinking, because now I can say, all right, it succeeds it. No, well, it couldn't put, well. Whatever you say to yourself in your nervous system, hang on, trust me, this is just, I'm getting closer to the kinds of things that I keep telling you that I'll never tell you in words. I'm getting closer. I'm just dancing around, skating. So listen. Whatever you say to yourself, apparently, whatever you say is not the first word. No matter what it's about. No matter what it's about, and you say to yourself, out of hell with that. Or, boy, I want to do that. All right, let's say that's what you said to yourself. When you saw so-and-so, I want that, or I want to do that. That was not the first word. But that's not the last word. But that wasn't even your word. Now there's a way in which some of you should be close enough that you can confront and feel the reality of this. Because some of you, on first hearing it, may sound strange or sound like the kind of thing that I'm mapping out that must mean something else, or be a tropical sketch of some other something that I'll get to some other time, and that you'll wait it out. There is a reality in your nervous system that some of you, if it doesn't happen now, you should be able to go out here tonight or tomorrow, not jogging or walking down the street, and try and remember that behind every thought is another thought. Remember, I don't mean succeeding it. I don't mean that it's related to that thought and that you unconsciously are having that thought, but since you can't consciously stand to have it, it comes out as this thought. I don't mean any of that. I mean just what I said. Behind every thought you have, there's another thought. Before every thought you had another thought. Beneath every thought you had another thought. Above every thought you had another thought. But any thought you have, whatever it is right then, you cannot take it as being an isolated, an individual, a viable, living entity. But now remember, I told you, when I say there's another thought behind the thought, it may not have any connection, so you can't say. All right, you're saying that they're tied together like some kind of root canal or some kind of below the surface. All right, I'm saying that. But ordinary intelligence would tell you that, all right, there's got to be some connection of some kind, no matter how tenuous, there's got to be some connection that this thought had with another thought. I just told you it doesn't. But behind every thought you ever have is another thought. Behind every word you ever say is another word. To be able to see this and to remember this would qualify as revolutionary freedom. Since I pointed out that I was not making reference to the ordinarily conceived of idea of an unconscious or a subconscious aspect of human mentation or human consciousness, the reality of what I'm telling you, that behind every idea is another idea, and behind every word is another word, it does form the basis, the reality of this, in a more complex form, forms the more simplistic basis of the psychological mapping. I guess it's no longer a theory, it's an accepted fact that there is really a thing that can be identified and has been mapped out to varying degrees of the unconscious mind and the subconscious mind. I know I use them interchangeably, and you people that major in psychology, but you know, give me a break. This is the basis of that, but it's also the basis of several other things I might as well mention. We can take a sidestep. All of the old myths, all of the old fairy tales, of people talking to the dead, of dead talking to people, of people believing they hear the voices of gods, or people from other planets. It's this. This is the basis of it. It's what I'm telling you. That behind every thought that everybody has is another thought. Behind every word that you say to yourself, there's another word. Behind every one. And this comes out in stories, myths, religious tales, parables, then even people believing that, all right, my dead mother's talking to me, or a dead Indian. I know nobody ever becomes a channel for a dead Albanian. I don't know why. But the feeling, and people say, all right, I hear God talking to me. And people that otherwise seem to be, as I would say in the city, fairly middle class, fairly sane. But there are people around that, here and there that will say, yes, God talks to me. And you watch them for a while, they seem to be fairly well, except for that one thing that they say, yeah, I hear the voice of God. I can't prove it to you, but I hear Him talking to me. This is it. This is the reality of it. It is more complex. It goes around the corner. There's one reason that I cannot, or I'm not going to try much harder, to give you a more valid or a more apparently material and solid description. I'm going to keep repeating for a while here. Behind every thought is another thought. Whatever thought you have, that's not it. Now, you may need that thought. You may need what you said to yourself to function. But that thought, that is not the beginning of it, and that sure is not the end of it. Because behind every thought you have, you and everybody, there's another thought. Am I going to have to already go against what I just said and expand on it? Is it possible? Let's take another time out. How about more of an aside? You remember night before last, I was pointing out that the allure of the exotic, the apparent value and the hunger for the non-indigenous is no less than, at the cellular level, each person's nervous system, right up through the brain stem, right up to where your brain is operating, and everybody's brain's operating. If you're hearing my voice and it's making any sense at all, if you recognize it as English, then your brain is operating. This desire, and of course behind every desire is another desire, in case you thought it was your desire, but it's your cell's desire, it's their drive to go into new areas. Everybody remembers that? Well, as long as I'm here talking about those affairs metaphysical, all of the stuff throughout the ages, now called New Age, but all the metaphysical stuff, all the mystical stuff, they are, in fact, crippled dreams motivated by man's desire, by the cellular desire for the nervous system to go into unexplored areas. But when it's seen, when it's felt, when it's experienced and then attempted to put into words at a more simplistic level, that is, ordinary people, then it comes out thusly. It comes out as stories about certain people or the possibility of people transcending the current state of man, but not here. It just, put it very crudely, it never crosses their mind. But now you people, some of you got to know what I mean. Life is not arranged to now make people in general translate this urge of their cells up there wanting to go to new areas in the way in which I'm going to describe it, and always do describe it, into an area that is not material, not observable. But when it comes out throughout the ages, all the mystics, right up until today, whatever the form seems to take, there it is based on reality. It's not nutso. It's not people are crazy saying, I believe I'm talking to God, or I believe that I'm talking to somebody dead from Atlantis, or I believe that if I pray and fast and follow some regimen or study this book, I'll be able to be something great. The idea that they're going to transcend something is not here. It always comes out, the idea that I'll be able to transcend, or other people have, quite material physical laws, such as walk on the water, talk to the dead, return from the dead. That's always it. Does anybody see why at times, I don't guess I have to anymore, but at times I know some of you in the beginning think that I stop and take some particular fun of poking at religion or New Age or metaphysical. It's not that. That's as sane, it's as worthwhile, it's just as wholesome as white bread, mayonnaise, and every other good hobby in the city. But notice it never strikes anybody's mind at the ordinary level. Life does not let the information out. Even those that apparently have spent their life studying astrology, trying to chant and talk to the dead, all the various things, studying different religions, traveling here and there to exotic places trying to meet exotic people with exotic ideas. People who have spent their life in that. And if you talk to them and they say, well, yes, we're all on some kind of great quest. The Buddha was, I am. Jesus was, I am. And you say, well, what do you consider, what's going to be the payoff? What is it you're after? Now, they may mumble around about something, well, I want more wisdom and I want to be able to help my fellow man. But if you start saying, well, you know, how is it? Let's get down to brass tacks. I might be interested in this. I've had urges. But what's going to be the actual payoff? What are you going to get out of this besides helping the universe to grow and making God happy? What will you get out? They have to fall back on this. And when I say they have to, I don't mean that's just a historical basis from which there is no escape. It's their own selves also telling them this. But if you do look back, who are supposed to be all the great people that had some extraordinary knowledge? You know them as well as I do. At least you know the well-known ones as well as I do. And Moses and Buddha and Jesus. You know, what are they known for when you think When you really get into religion good, like go see a good Cecil B. DeMille after he come on the Bible, after he come on the Bible, or what's Moses known as besides having all this wild hairdo? But what's he known as? All these things about throwing down sticks and they turn into snakes. Or the Pharaoh keeps fucking around with him and he says, all right. And he goes, whoom, and it's locusts and flies and chiggers. It is always, or what's Jesus known as? To the fundamental, well, I guess to all of Christianity, what's supposed to be Jesus' biggest piece of shtick? Coming back from the dead. And after that, it's left like, well, he walked in the water. But, all right, so notice, that here it is built into humans, into the nervous system, of course into life itself, wanting to grow. And making men be itchy to grow. To go, regardless of how Gene, what's his name, Roddenberry stole it, to go where people have never gone before. But does it come out in here? No, the transcending that they think about, the way it comes out is, all right, I want to do what people's never done. I want to go where people's never gone. Well, where's that? I want to go out there on that water and walk. I want to be able to pick up just everyday rocks and rub them and turn them into gold. It's always a transcendental trip past the known laws of physics. That's all it is. Every religion, every so-called system, as it comes out at their city level, throughout history, throughout the world, that is what mysticism, that is what New Ageism, that's what their pursuit, even those that apparently are most sincere. That's all they're left with. And if you tried to say something like, well, you keep talking about magic and fooling around with the laws or going beyond the laws of the known universe. They go, yeah. Well, there's the proof that you're in line with the gods and the great cosmic forces. And if you tried to say, well, how about if you could go somewhere else that you couldn't see? And they go, well, what the hell does that mean? What if you could go somewhere and transcend physical laws, but it was just up here? I assume that you see that you could not go out and stir up a big following among current New Agers or past ones if you could dig them up from the grave and say, that's going to be the payoff. How can that compare with being able to fly through there and leave your body? Or to raise the dead? Think of the kind of money you could make. Think how famous you'd be. Or if you could talk to the dead, the spirit somewhere, that they give information about what the stock market's going to do. All that kind of thing. I just wanted you to notice that there is always a basis. It's not that people who believe that they're involved with something like that, it's not that they made it up. People can't make up things any more than they can make up things. Don't ever forget that. But there is a basis, and I can say a known basis. I know what it is. I'm describing it to you. It is in people. There is nothing at all untoward of somebody saying, God talks to me. Now, it might be something untoward insofar as if you were having to live with that person. If it was your mother or an aunt that you took in, you might want to, I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to say, look, here's some money, go get your own apartment. But insofar as believing, if any of you do that, well, hey, that is completely nut city. It is not. And I don't bring it up, of course, to defend them. But for you to see that you are surrounded in ways that are never identified. You're surrounded by the very things I talk about week after week. But they filter out into a flawed, into a crippled, into only a partial form. And this is just a great example that all the ideas, and it's not just the New Agers and the mystics, it's in religions. You don't have to look at the fringes of religions. Look at the middle class. Look at Christianity. Look at how Jesus is seen. The proof of his greatness, his divinity, his otherworldness, his transcendental nature is what? His wisdom? Oh, they'll say, yeah. Well, they'll say, who else could say, blessed are the poor? What is he identified by the planet? By a large portion of the humans on this planet, has he identified as being of a transcendental nature? It's by magic tricks. In the full sense of the word, that is, he transcended what? Known human intelligence? Nah. He could walk on the water. He could take people that was dead. Everybody said, oh, she's dead, she's dead. And he'd say, stand up, woman. And she'd stand up. That is what attracts people. That is what makes the nervous system, not in a way to be silly. I'm not making fun of it, but it makes the nervous system of the hoi polloi, the bourgeoisie, go, ooh. It makes the cells, as it were, at a very non-verbal and way down level. It is like life still letting the knowledge permeate out onto its own periphery, which is its intelligence at the city level. It's like let the cells know that things are possible. You can go where people hadn't gone. But the best it makes out of it, all it cares to make out of it, well, if I had time, if I had been born, kin to God, directly like Jesus, or if I had time to go through some magic school in Egypt like I bet Moses did, or if I had time to go off and wander around and think weird thoughts for all those years like Buddha did, knowing I had a good palace to come back to if it didn't work out. If I could do all that and develop superhuman powers, that's the only thing they can imagine. That's the only thing, that's as far as life lets it comes out, but it makes the molecules, makes the cells in humanity's own brain collectively go, yeah. And therefore the Jesuses, the Buddhas, Muhammads are seen, felt, accepted by, well, you know how many people accept. Put them all together and you're just about taking over the world. Hardly anybody will really insist that they don't believe in some kind of supernatural power and that we could be better. And so, but it comes out, what I simply want you to see, that the proof that man's nervous system is dying to grow, is growing, but does not, in one person's lifetime, and with ordinary people, does not even come close to what would be growth, because you don't see anybody developing the ability to walk on water. Nobody, if we assume Jesus was the first one. Has anybody since then done it? People who gave everything they had to the church. Can they walk on water? People that light 100 candles a day. People that pray. People that go to Mass 4 or 5 times a day. Has anybody ever walked on water since then? Not that we know of. Has anybody raised the dead since then? Not that we know of. Has anybody been able to do what Moses did? I mean, people that keep all the laws got 3 sets of china at home. I don't know what that means, but they got 3. Have any of those people gone out to the Hudson River, the Chattahoochee River, the Los Angeles River, if you folks had one, and went, hey, has anybody been able to do it since Moses? No, but the dream still is. If you think, well, what would it be if I was really a Muslim? Could I go out and beat up the whole world? That isn't what they dream of. They dream that I would in some way transcend, I would go beyond simple physical laws. I could overcome the law of gravity. It does not happen. That is not the point of the nervous system wanting to grow. But it's just, again, as I was trying to give you a little time out before I kept pushing in another direction, it is the continual proof of things that from certain views you can think are funny, that you can think are silly, that you can think are frightening, and there's nothing to think about. It's not a judgmental spectrum that I am trying to point to say that it's either right or wrong, or good or bad. It is simply useless because it is flawed. It is not the kind of information that is useful to somebody who finds himself in the position in life's body to end up fooling around with stuff like this. It simply won't do. But it is further, you're surrounded by the further movements of energy of other people as best they can, believing in it, supporting it, having no choice, of course, but even verbally saying, yes, I'm in favor of it. And they cannot conceive of the fact that the magic, being of a transcendental nature, having the ability to go where somebody hadn't gone, having the ability to go beyond mere human activity, is not to walk on the water, is not to come back from the dead, but it's to go up here, which I could, if I wanted to carry this any further, I could start drawing parallels. I could start making metaphors out of the Jesuses and all the other religions. Somebody in every religion, one way or the other, had a sacrifice of somebody that died, or else they got the dream that somebody's going to come here, our final leader, and he will die and he'll come back. Look at it this way. That somebody left the city. Remember those of you that know my diagrams of drawing the nervous system up here, or the physical one of Dana's doing the city and all the little leaving the city and going to an area that it might as well be the grave, and to be able to come back. But that won't do. That does not strike anybody at the ordinary level that would be worthwhile. Or I could say the idea of walking on the water is the same thing. To be able to walk, to be able to think things that other people, if they tried to think it, they go, well, no, it's drowned city. They have to call for help. They just collapse. And that you can dance across areas that everybody else would drown. Or else they say this is useless. There's no way to think out here. That is, you can't walk out here. This is water. You got to stay over here on dry land. Terra firma, and that you could perhaps walk on water. No sense carrying that any further. I'm just telling you, though, that is the way all of these myths, all of these fairy tales come out. Now back to what I was talking about on the main path. That you had time to be distracted and we had a few laughs. Behind every thought is another thought. That which you appear to think to yourself, that which you seemingly say to yourself, is not the first thing about even that one thing. That is not the first thing that you thought about it. But now I got to repeat again, I don't mean that, all right, you thought one thing sometime that you're not aware of, and then it set up a whole series of emotions, and then you finally thought this. I didn't say that. I'm saying whatever it is that you think you're thinking about, this thing, that was not the first thing. But it's not the second thing, and it's not the last thing. I thought maybe if we left for 5 or 6 minutes out there and came back, that some of you might help. Let me repeat it again. Seems to work in sales. It seems to really work in religion. They just keep saying the same thing over for thousands of years, and finally it's like humanity goes, oh, all right, I believe it. Behind every thought that you have, behind every thought that you have, and remember, behind doesn't mean behind like they think in the city, but every thought you have, there it is, it's a thought. I don't care how mundane it seems, I don't care how great and aspiring, I don't care how romantic, how dangerous, but behind every thought, that thought that you just had about this thing, this person, whatever it is, that thought is not the beginning, it's not the end of it, it's not even the middle of it. You had this thought about this thing, but it almost has no relationship to what I'm talking about, because what I'm talking about may almost have no relationship to what you thought you were thinking about. But behind every thought, you personally, every thought you have about anything, there's another thought. Every word that you say, every sentence you say about something, there's a whole other sentence that may have no connection whatsoever to what you just said. I guess I can make this much clearer. I guess I better. When I say that it may have no connection, nota bene, please note this: without the thought that I'm saying is behind every thought, and every sentence behind every sentence. Had you not had that thought and had that sentence, had it not been there, you would not be thinking what you're thinking. But now I didn't say it had any connection. Not in connection. No. Oh, yeah, I see how this worked itself out throughout the years. No. But I'm telling you, without the thought that I'm saying is behind every thought, you could not have whatever the thought is now. Whatever it is you're saying to yourself about something, then the sentence that's behind everything that you say, and when I say the sentence, I don't mean there's just one permanent sentence, but another sentence behind everything, another word behind every word you say. Were it not for the word behind every word you say, you would have no word to say. But now I didn't say it had any connection. Some of this, even when I finally say it out loud, which is the only time I ever say it to you people, I got to admit, some of it even gets sticky. And I don't know anybody better to tell you, because I don't know anybody that knows this. And so I'm the only one, but even sometimes when I say it, and just before I say it, I fairly well know that it's going to get exchanged with a few people here, and then I may be able to expand it. But sometimes even I am somewhat, if I were disappointed, How about nonplussed? Temporarily taken aback that, well, nobody is hearing yet what I'm saying, what I'm pointing toward. Now, I didn't say that this was one of the times. I didn't say that. I just wanted to say that. But is that the name of the store? Your choice, $6. Yeah. But the prices. Yeah. But that is the name of the, yeah. And the person in charge, that is, the salesperson, says, oh, wait a minute. No, wait. You didn't think that the name of the store and... It's just the name. Just the name of the store. Why don't we start a new religion? Or why don't I called The Way Out of All This? How would that be? I guess to make it a little more interesting, maybe the full name, I guess that could be the trade name, but the full name, I guess, would be something like, give us everything you've got and we'll show you how to get out of this. And then, those that would join up and give us everything they got, some of them want everything they had, then later let them start asking after a few months or years or whenever the gods seem to so move them, like, well, I don't feel much better. I don't feel like I've gotten out of it. And then you can play. I'll turn it over. I'll make all of you cardinals or bishops or assistant rabbis, and then you can play the part of the salesperson going, well, what do you mean? And they say, well, the name of the church here, the religion, the card I carry that you gave me when I gave you everything. You remember you gave me that little card? Yeah. Well, the name is, give us everything you've got and we'll get you out of this. Well, I don't feel like... You go, yeah, what? You got the card? Yeah, I know I got the card. We gave you the card. But it says, give us everything you got, and I give you everything you got. Yeah, well, what? And it says, and then we'll get you out of here. And then you go, oh, wait. You didn't think that the name of the thing had anything. Oh, that's just the name of it. Right? So there was another 2 or 3 minutes worth of distraction. Now let's go back. Behind every thought is another thought. Behind every word is another word. And I told you that whatever you think and whatever you say to yourself is not the first word, is not the first thought. It's not the last one, it's not the middle one. A real revolutionist, somebody with a new intelligence, would understand that all the myths, all the stories, all of the beliefs that you are hearing the voices of God, of dead people, that your thoughts are yours, that what you just said is what you just said. A real revolutionist knows, somebody with new intelligence, somebody that was beyond that, that transcended that not by walking on water, but transcended that by going into a new area here, would know this, that all such matters I just mentioned, all such matters amount to receiving unsigned calls and telegrams sent collect, about which you can't do a damn thing. That is, you cannot refuse. You cannot say, I will not take the call. You cannot say, no, I don't want it. I'm not going to pay for it. Don't give it to me. All the way from what appear to be, if it appears such to you, to be from one mundane, simplistic level, such as believing that God is talking to you, all the way from that to believing you have an unconscious mind, or believing that simply what you think is what you think. All of that is included in what I just said before we turn the tape over, that if you had a new kind of intelligence, you would see it all as being forms of unsigned calls and telegrams that you received or sent to you, collect. You got to turn the tape over. Well, as the great American philosopher Robert Ripley used to say, about what I'm talking about, either believe it or get stuffed. Well, no. Believe it or don't. Well, you know what he used to say anyway. It's connected with everything I've been talking about the last few nights, and believe it or not, it's connected with what I'm about to say. Either believe it or not. Look into your own brain and operations and note this, that generally people, that is the brain, where you're apparently thinking, sees others, judges others on the basis of the way they behave. And yet, your brain does to you that which you call you. It judges you. It feels you to be what you think. Tell Robert Ripley to take that. Well, I'm certainly counting on the fact that none of you see any connection between that and anything I talked about tonight, much less tonight. But shouldn't one find that interesting once it's pointed out? You do not, at the ordinary level, so we're talking about everybody in life, you do not judge, and I mean in the full sense of judge. That is your conception of people, individually, collectively. You judge them on one basis. Your perception of people is on one basis. And what's that? How they act. That's it. As a matter of fact, if you're feeling, and it gets into a point that you seem to have a feeling about what somebody did, and you call them on their behavior, what's the first thing, usually in civilized society, where most of you reside, according to the maps, what's the first thing they want to do about their behavior? When you say, you did so-and-so, and you called such and such. You backed into my car. What do they want to do, normally? They want to explain to you what they were thinking. Do they not? Now, that is not the words they use, but what they want to do is tell you what is going on inside of them. They might look at it as being an attempt to give you a psychological briefing on their state as to why this unforeseen, transient anomaly in their behavior occurred. Are you interested? Fat chance. Hey man, don't tell me what you were worried about. Don't tell me you just lost your job. Sorry. What's that going to do with my car? What do I care whether he just lost his job or he said his wife just left him? Jesus. The perception from one human to another is on the basis of how the other people behave. Your mother, your father. Now you can talk about it for a little bit, otherwise, that the way my mother treated me makes me wonder what she thought of me. Notice in that kind of sentence which came first. Well, the way she treated me, now that I've taken here half a quarter of Psychology 101, I'm beginning to wonder now if she didn't have some sort of psychological problems herself. What if Moses jumped behind a bush and said, yeah, I guess you did. So what, kid? Then you would say, oh, well, she still had no business treating me that way. That is, behaving the way she did. People do not have an interest. They've got that kind of city, some people do because of the way the job they have, that kind of critical interest that they make a living talking about it. But notice that nobody has a personal interest in why somebody behaves some way that affects you. Nobody does. I assure you, if we're going to look at Freud as being the father of psychology in the West, psychiatry, if somebody backed into Freud's car and he went, you dumb son of a bitch, that's my brand new Mercedes here, what the hell are you doing? And the guy says, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know, ever since I was a child. Have you know anything about psychology? And Freud might say, well, maybe, he didn't recognize Freud. And he said, maybe I do. Why? And he said, well, ever since I'm a child, I've been reading psychology. And ever since I'm a child, I don't know, because I had 2 older brothers and they used to kick me around. It seems like now anytime I see something that makes me envious, I have an unconscious desire to harm it. So maybe I backed into your car, but it's not my fault because it's my childhood. I assure you that Ford had said, go, give me a break, get out of here. You backed into my car. What do I care about your childhood? That's exactly the way people are wired up. That their perception, their judgment, your feeling, fill in any synonym you want to, of other people, from your mother, your father, your sisters, brothers, best friends, lovers, is on the way they behave. No matter what you may say in transient, en passant, you may say something about, well, how are you feeling? What were you thinking that caused you to go to bed with my best friend for 2 years in a row? You may ask your woman or your man that, but how long are you going to be interested? You're just, stalling, trying to keep from kill the person. You think, well, I saw somebody in a movie. I saw Jack Nicholson one time. I got to do something. You say, well, what made you do this? Do you care? No. You found her in bed with half of the L.A. Lakers. And you say, well, what is it about you that's I'm always interested. Why have you always been so attracted to sports figures? You don't care. All right. I guess I've made the point. But notice, even though I've made the point enough to where all of you are laughing now, and probably a bunch of you, I can hear you out of town. But notice, you had never seen that. You never think that way. Now, of course, that by itself wouldn't be saying much. But now, the rest of it is, even though you'd never seen that because there'd been no reason, that by itself really is of no great use. The rest of it is, you do not apply that to you whatsoever. Nobody does. Again, now, I'll point this out. You will apparently pay some kind of transient lip service to your behavior. I shouldn't do so-and-so. I shouldn't be so critical. I shouldn't argue with my mother so much. I shouldn't be so jealous of my sexual partner. People can say that. And it apparently is you talking about your behavior, right? But that is not. You got your own thinking to look at. I don't have to prove this. If you belong here, you got your own thinking. You got the whole life. You got humanity's life in your nervous system to read individually. You do not perceive of you, your feeling about you, your perception of you, your judgment of you is not on your behavior. It is on the basis of what you think. That's how you see you. So now put yourself in the position of the person that you do back into somebody's car on their way to work. You just got up and found out your wife has gone and left you. Your lover has gone and left you. You got up and found out that your apartment was on fire. You get up and find, you look outside and it's raining. You get a phone call that your mother just died. And you're out there still trying to get to work. And suddenly you hear crunch and you hear a voice holler, "You goddamn idiot!" And you look up and you realize you're into somebody's car. Is your perception of you, is your feeling of you in life, in that instance, but in life, on the way you behave? Because now you're on the other side of my little story. The guy comes around and says, "You dumb bastard, couldn't you see why'd you back into my car?" Your conception of you don't want to talk about your behavior. I mean, it's obvious you hit his car. But what's not obvious, what's really, that's of no importance. That's not you. You're driving the car, sure, you hit his car, and we got insurance and all that. But that's not you. The you is, sir, I hate that. My wife just left me and my mother died, and it's raining. Your judgment, not just in a pejorative sense, your full judgment, your perception, your in toto feeling throughout these years of you is how you think. I still know you will go up to the mirror and you look to see whether you're putting on weight, losing weight, you'll see how your hair looks, and you'll dress up. But your feeling of who you are is not based on your behavior. Contraire. It's on how you think. And a part of what you're thinking throughout life is explaining how you behaved. In the city, they would call it rationalizing. But it's you talking about actions. It's not ex post facto talking about your actions. That's only true in the city. It appears to be that way. You're talking about your planning of actions, even after it's happened. I was afraid I'd get too sticky. When you backed into the guy's car, and you began to, you're talking apparently to him, but you're also talking to you. Not about your behavior. You don't talk about that. That's obvious. You hit his car, but that, you know, that's nothing. That's nothing. It's in here. And so if you talk then, either to him, or if nobody's there to see you do it, you just hit the car and go, oh. You talk to you about why you hit it. That's planning. That's talking of action, not action. You judge everybody else on action. You judge you on thinking of action. To you, you're not how you behaved in life because you can't help, by and large, how you behave, especially those areas that you either got caught at or that you don't particularly like. You're obviously not responsible. So how are we going to judge ourselves individually? Now I'm speaking for individuals in the city, low-level consciousness. How are we going to, in any way, judge ourselves or think about ourselves in the way we behave when, in all the bad ways, we're not responsible? You do not think of you. This kind of life picture that we could say that you have right quick, this continuing picture you've had for 20 or 30 or 40 years, however old you are, up to now about who you are when you hear your name, when you see it down there on a junk mail, or when you see yourself in the mirror. It is not on the way you behave. That's not you to you. You to you is what you think. Everybody else to you is how they behave. Absolutely no connection to anything I've said, not only tonight, but you know, for even tonight, no connection. Well, as long as I'm really playing eclectic melange, if not potpourri, don't write me. Or oleo. As long as everything is in a state of flux. It's all disjointed. How about this? A small combination of two things that are completely disjointed to each other and all of this, but both of them together are ill-appropriate to a discussion such as we're having now in a specific area. How about this? To what ends do you suppose it is? To what purpose has man been wired up to want to make, be prepared to make, but want to make sacrifices? Not only to sacrifice, but to continually, the great myths, the great religious stories, things that people will pay lip service to themselves about. Not only to sacrifice, but to in fact destroy something they love, something valuable to them. Nowadays it's not just human or animal sacrifice, but give something that is now of value to a church, to a God, your money. That's supposedly representing your past wealth of animals or children or wives. But it is wired up, not just in religions. I can just point out the obvious quick way that you can see this reflected in the myths, even pre-Western religions. But they are replete with them, all religions, all the way from sacrificing the stories of people that the gods say, give me your son, give me your wife, give me your farm, give me all of your animals, or once a year bring your best animal, the thing that means the most to you. All the way from that to, from city level, it might appear to be some sort of progress, that it gets now to be a bit more allegorical. Even to some of the people in the city of old intelligence, like the sacrifice is now to give up something that's valuable to you. You really like pot, don't you? Yeah, it ain't bad. If you're going to get anywhere with this, you got to sacrifice. You like having a few drinks after work every day. Well, not over 7 days a week, but yeah. Then the feeling, not just that somebody has to, from a pulpit, or somebody has to attack you from the TV screen saying you shouldn't drink. It is already built into people. They're wired up, whether they actually do it, but they're wired up to think about themselves as I should do it, I could do it, it is perhaps proper that I do it someday, to sacrifice, if not my child, if not my worldly goods, to sacrifice things that I enjoy. Whether they do it or not, I'm telling you, people are wired up to want to even entertain it. To go, well, even if I'm too weak to do it, I should do it. It is not improper for me to do it if I do get it strong enough to do it. To what end? Why are things wired up? If life did not want people to drink, if life didn't want people to have an extra cow, an extra sheep 3,000 years ago, if the gods in life did not want people, if the gods decided somewhere along the line that, all right, everybody should have 2.5 children. Now, everybody's going to have 2.5 children, but I don't know. Most of them don't need but 1.5. All right, so everybody has, once you have 2.5 children, well, I want you to kill one of them for me. If it was going to do that, if that was the end need for life, why did it not in the beginning say, all right, everybody is going to have everybody have 1.5 children, and be done with it. Or if it's going to say, all right, I don't want people drinking. I'm going to arrange things to where they'll discover alcohol. I don't want anybody to drink. I'll make everybody ever taste it go, yeah. Or, of course, it could take the easy way out and say, well, alcohol. Now, strike alcohol from creation. But no. It has alcohol, and throughout history, you've had people making alcohol and people drinking alcohol. And for the same length of time, you've had people saying, we shouldn't be doing this. And you've had people saying, in fact, not only should we not be doing this, I quit doing it. The gods wanted me to quit doing it. And the gods want the rest of you to quit. And by and large, you'll get the crowd of humanity to go, yeah, you're probably right. To what end? Are things wired up that people want to make sacrifices? They want to give up, to even destroy, to kill something that they enjoy, that they love, that has value to them. Why is life arranged in that way? Absolutely unconnected to any of that. It was the combo I was going to give you to get rid of all this. You remember my fictitious code of revolutionist conduct that we read? Well, I blamed it on Kyroots, didn't I? I mean, I channeled it for Kyroots. But you remember, one time we had, there was several pages of little one-liners that I said that if there was such a thing as a real revolutionist code of conduct, either I or Kyroots suggested that perhaps some of those things would be included in such a fictitious code. All right. You should make them believe that you do have a personal code of conduct. You should make them believe that. That is, you should make them believe that your inner populace is under the firm, steady control of a powerful, complex, and intelligent ruler. You should make them believe it. Oh! You should especially make the partnership believe it. If you can take the pretense of intensity, if you can act and make the partnership, if you can act like that you do have a personal code of conduct wherein things are under the firm, steady control of a powerful, complex, intelligent ruler, the partnership, based upon its present biological structures, it has little choice but to accept it and believe it. No one should try and find any, even the most tenuous connection between that and what it was I said just before this. I forgot what I was talking about. But there's no connection between sacrifice. There's no connection between any of that. And don't you believe there is, and don't you leave here and let somebody stop you on the street and ask if I was talking about tonight, if anything, I mentioned sacrifice and making them believe that you do have a personal code of conduct. You deny it. Or don't listen. You say, I don't know. I forgot. Don't let anybody tell you that there was any relationship between any of that. Well, if you did think there was any connection between that, then I would have to say, ciao.